Hello, welcome to Wildwood Teaching. I'm Nicole Phyllis Fravel, and today I want to talk about how you can use all of those acorns available in the fall for preschool learning. As always, the disclaimer at the beginning of this video, I am going to break the ideas down by subject. That is not necessarily how young children are approaching it. That is just for our teacher brains. And in fact, when you look over everything that I've got prepared for you today, it is very fine motor heavy. So almost any of the activities that you're doing here, any of these ideas, you will also be aiding the children in helping their fine motor development. Okay, so let's start out with art. So one of the things that's pretty common in early childhood is to do the marble painting in a tray, right? And so all you're going to do here is substitute an acorn for your marble. So they get a little bit of paint on their acorn, drop it in the tray, and then they're just going to roll it around the tray to make the lines on their paper. They can switch colors. I do like to have a tray with a high top so that we aren't spilling the paint all over the place. Another idea is to make an acorn wreath. Now, I've got cardstock. You can use cardboard. You could use a hot glue gun. But what I've done here is I've taken simple cotton batting. And if you stretch that cotton batting out, you just need a really thin layer. And what that does is that, sorry, my computer is chatting with me. There we go. That allows you to use regular glue to stick all of the acorns or acorn caps or whatever pieces that the children have onto the cardboard without using a hot glue gun. If you do decide to make like a wreath, it is a cool group collaborative activity, and it is a wonderful excuse for children to squeeze and squeeze and squeeze and go crazy with the glue like you know that they want to. So another thing, let's talk about science quickly, right? So you've got acorns, right? You've got a baby oak tree. And so plant it, right? That is a science experiment. Now, what you're going to need when you plant it is you are going to need to find whole, undamaged acorns. That means they don't have any bug holes. And then you want to test them first for viability. And so the way you're going to test them is you have some water. And if you stick the acorns in the water and they float, woohoo, viable, right? Those are ones that might grow. If you stick the acorns in the water and they immediately sink to the bottom, well, that one was interesting because it sank and came back up. Maybe I was a little bit too enthusiastic in how I plunked it in. But this is actually a cool science activity in its own for children, right? Do your acorns sink or float? And then why? What's going on here? Right? You might find that for the ones that sank, if children examine them under a microscope, you might find that they have the tiny bug holes in them, which means the inside has been eaten out, and that's why it's not viable. So here's how you're going to plant the acorns. Once you have found your ones that are viable, acorns hibernate, over the winter. So you're going to need to simulate that hibernation, which means you're going to want to put your acorns in the refrigerator for about 2 weeks because you are pretending that it is a cold winter. And then you're going to set up sort of a terrarium, right? That's so that the children can observe it growing. You want to have a layer of of gravel or sand or something on the bottom to create drainage. Then you're going to do your soil. Then you have paper towel on the top, and you're going to nestle your acorn in between the paper towel and the side of the bottle. This is just an old soda bottle. You can use any clear container that you have. Then you are going to, this is my spray bottle of water. You are going to wet it, right? Get the whole thing moist. You're going to want to keep it moist, but obviously not soaking wet. And then to create that terrarium feel of it, you need to have a lid. So my lid here is just a simple piece of aluminum foil that I am putting on top. You can put this in a sunny place, whether that is outside or whether that's a sunny windowsill or whether you are lucky enough to have like some sort of heating lamp on the inside your classroom, and then just observe the changes. Right? So again, I said, fine motor we're working on, right? You already got the magnifying out to observe your acorns. Get that nutcracker, right? Let the children go ahead and crack the nuts, and then they can observe the inside of the acorn, the layers of the acorn, and how there's a kind of the nut meat on the inside. There's a protective coating. There's a hard shell, right? And you can always have clipboard paper next to them for them to draw what they see, for them to take observations. All right, so let's move on to math. So I like to have ice cube trays. You can tell I use my ice cube trays for everything. And this is your chance to talk about more or less, to count how many, to do some sorting activities using the tray. You can also, right, use dice. Either you have your dot die, you have your number die, you could use foam letters, whatever, or foam numbers, whatever you have that says, okay, this is how many acorns I'm going to put into my tray. You can also do some one-to-one matching. Again, you don't need these fancy ones. These are kind of cool because they can put the acorns, nestle them in the holes. But if all you have are foam numbers, if all you have are numbers that you've written on an index card, that works really well. I also have here a balance. So you can set up your balance, right? Put whatever classroom objects you've got on the one side of the balance, and then you're counting, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, I'm getting close. 9, 10. It takes 10 acorns to balance one magnifying glass. Well, what if I change that and I have the die in here instead? then it's going to take less acorns to balance out my one die. And I can decide, oh, the one die weighs one acorn. Right. So for literacy, right, you can simply use your Sharpie to put letters or words or whatever children are practicing on the acorn, right? I made a little N for Nicole, right? And then children can use that to spell their names, to sort out capital lowercase letters, to do matching. I have a squirrel. Actually, this started out as a bear. We added some teeth when we wanted him to be a beaver. Now we're pretending that he's a squirrel who eats acorns. You can do it once with the children as a whole group game, and then they can manage it on their own, right? There's a rule. Whatever your rule is for the squirrel. Maybe the squirrel would like to eat all the letter N's, right? And then the other children, one child is in charge of the puppet, the other children are in charge of feeding the squirrel, right? And either the teacher or the child who's leading it can say, yes, the squirrel is eating that. You did find an N, yay. Or, nope, sorry, that's not an N. You can sort out capital and lowercase letters. You can do letter sounds. If you have children who are distinguishing between words and letters, that's another option. Really unlimited in how you can use this. You can also pretend to be squirrels, right? Children can have a letter card and they are gathering all of their acorns for the winter that match that letter card. Again, you can do sounds. We're doing all of the letters that make a sound, and we're gathering those to store up for winter, right? Make it a little game. Lastly, I know that we've done a lot of fine motor. You can combine fine motor with sensory by just taking whatever bin you have, wherever your sensory place is, filling it with sand, kinetic sand, soil, water, and then scoops, funnels, tongs, right, for a little treasure hunt. Again, the children are the squirrels. We've buried the acorns in that sand, and they're going to use their tongs or their scoops or their sifters, right, to again gather up those stash of acorns for the winter. So I hope that you will find a way to use some of these ideas to take advantage of all of the acorns that are falling to the ground right now. We'd love to see what you do with it. Feel free to comment under the video. Feel free to respond to a newsletter, to DM me through Instagram, Facebook, with pictures of how your children are interacting with acorns this fall. And then join me here next week for another episode of Wildwood Teaching. I will see you there.